see some of the familiar names again, logging from different places, and then also everybody joining the webinar directly. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about the fourth in the series of webinars on why academia, and the theme is cost efficiency, or maybe versus effectiveness. In your decision on why would you choose academia as your student information system. As with the previous times, I'm going to start off with, well, let me maybe start off with first introducing myself. My name is Hanlie Spangenberg. I am the General Manager for Student Information Systems at IFLCorp. And I'm joined by our marketing team who's going to assist. Thank you very much. Please post your questions in the chat box and we will speak as we go along and attend to them as needed. Otherwise, I will make sure at the end that we address all these questions. You're also welcome to introduce yourself in the chat box if you want to introduce the country and the institution that you come from, because many times there are participants from many of the African countries specifically, and of course always South Africa, and you are welcome to introduce yourselves. I am quickly going to monitor and just see the chat box, and then I'm going to hand them over to our marketing team and they can continue with monitoring the chat box. I'm going to start off with a quick overview of IFLCorp. Not all of you have joined previously and knows where IFLCorp fits into this picture of the academia system. And then we will continue with specifically why are we looking at academia. IFLCorp has been in business for more than 20 years. And we are an IT company that supplies solutions for the student experience in the education sector. We've serviced many institutions and staff and students in the higher education space. And our excellence can also be seen in some of the awards that we have won in recent times. If I can highlight just the ones from last year. So the most, which we know has been a very trying year and a tough year to achieve things in. And still we have been awarded Most Innovative Higher Education Technology Company for 2020. IFLCorp has also been awarded the Best E-Learning Consultancy Firm in Africa last year, in the midst of COVID. And then we were recognized in the Global EdTech Awards as an EdTech company, setting a trend in 2020. Now these awards, they just come as a recognition to our excellence and commitment and dedication to the higher education sector and the technology that we make available in that sector. And the academia system falls very much in the middle of that technology offerings that we do and the excellence that we offer with regards to that. So what do we do at IFLCorp? We manage the student experience, and we do that with a grouping of best practice or best solution services. So we choose best of breed on all systems. We make sure that they can seamlessly integrate with each other, and we offer you systems that manages that cycle or the experience of the student at the institution. There's of course a learner management system. We have different options, Canvas, which is for the very large institutions, but we also have a learner management system, DigiCamba, that's specifically focused on open source technology and smaller institutions. And together with that, we offer a very big host of services that now supports the learner management space. That is the implementation, of course, of learner management systems, digital teaching and learning courses that we offer. These are CETA accredited, content development. We take your content and we develop it into a learner management system, course development toolkits that assist your own personnel to develop that, the digitization of your study guides, and hosting of your learner management system, a very broad range of services, all with regards to learner management. Now, of course, this learner management is very much embedded with your academia student information system, as they actually form part of the two main academic and administrative management tools of a student cycle. Then we have Turnitin, which is plagiarism detection software. And if you are in South Africa and many of the African countries, you will be a client of ours already through the usage of Turnitin. Motor Labs for a mobile platform development that takes away the coding and programming and supplies you with a framework that allows you to do your own mobile development. Very, very powerful tool. We have an e-commerce platform. We have a Brainwaves does change management and related services in all of these products. And we've got more services that specifically support this life cycle or the experience of the student at the institution. Now, academia is right in the middle of this and forms very much part of where does many of these cycles start from, or where do they need information to support the other businesses or the other areas in your institution that uses data from a student side. So let's quickly see. Academia is developed by our Indian partner, Cerosoft, who has been in business for more than 50 years. And Academia itself has been in the industry for more than 10 years with many customers globally. A lot of awards has always also been given to them. An excellent company that develops and supports the excellent product. And I think through these webinars, you would have seen the commitment in the use of things like technology and user experience and cost effectiveness with regards to the academia system. So let's just recap before we look specifically at the topic of the day. What does academia do? Academia manages the student cycle on academic side, administrative side, as well as the finances of the student. Campaigns and inquiries, where it starts off with going through your cycle of admissions and registrations. Now, 10 years back, registration was the most important part of a cycle. Now, in many countries, admissions is the most important cycle. If I can refer to the South African sector, this is where the management restraints lie and the staff restraints lie with regards to what you can manage. And there, the academia system starts off with already aiding in that first process that is important in the institution. Residence management, then of course, your full academic management, managing the curriculum of your institution with all the rules that is embedded, prerequisites that is needed to enforce these rules, and then going on to the practical things like timetables, attendance management, study material management. And the system is very strong in making sure that these components all make sure that it supports the mainstream of your student cycle in the academia system. The e-learning interface, one of the strong points is that we already have a lot of e-learning interfaces into the academia system that supports the different e-learning systems that you use, whether that is an open source system like Moodle or a proprietary system like Canvas. We support it via existing interfaces to make sure that you have a seamless share of data between your LMS and your SIS. Up until when the student completes the cycle. That is the full cycle that is managed in the academia system. Very much part of each of these components where fees are relevant is the generation of your fees, the payment of those fees, payment gateways to support that, the interfaces to your banking portals, scholarship management, everything embedded in the student finances of academia. Now that is usually the cycle of any student management system. They may leave out bits and pieces. We have functionality for campaigns. Not all SISs can do campaigns, but that in essence will be the cycle that you follow. And that will not be the part that puts you aside from the competition. But what makes academia more unique is things like the communication levels, the reporting levels, statistics, notifications, dashboards. And we have looked at analytics. We have looked at all of that in the 3 previous sessions on how does that assist you and how is that of value within the academia system. And I may touch on some of that again today, but I'm not going to go through all of that again, but just know that that is one of the things that makes the academia system unique and very user-friendly. The portals that you have for stakeholders, for example. How easy is it for your stakeholders to reach the information that is relevant to them as a grouping? Of course, this is all supported by the structures in the system, the rules that you set up that controls your system and your cycles. So this is in essence what the academia system does. But today, we're going to look at the last part of this 4-week series to say, how does the academia system aid you as an institution in cost efficiency? And I think I want to start off with comparing cost effectiveness to cost efficiency. Because if you look at student information system tenders or student information system RFIs from institutions, most often the word cost effective is used. So cost effective, that is the ability to use the resources that you have to achieve the objective. So the cost is the resources and to achieve your objectives, your outcomes. And if you ask, is the system cost effective? Yes. Does it have resources that it can achieve the outcomes? For me, the more important question is cost efficiency, which is the ability to use less resources, so lesser in cost, to achieve greater output. And that is the part that is many times forgotten. So where does that fit into your picture? Cost efficiency is the part that looks at the usage of less resources, and that has a direct impact on the initial implementation project of the cost of the project. The annual maintenance and support, that is your recurring and continuous cost. The cost of customization and system additions, and that is again not only a project cost but also an ongoing cost as you want the system to grow with you, and there will always be customization required within this process. We did look at customization last week, comparing configuration with customization, and we saw then that this can be a very big cost factor if you evaluate a student information system. The cost of hosting, depending on what platform you use, and depending on where your system is hosted, that can be a massive cost on a recurring basis to the institution, or it can be a no-brainer. There is no extra cost for the hosting of the system. The human resources, if you look at less resources, what human resources are needed to continuously support the system, to implement the system on an ongoing basis, to make sure that there are people that can use that system that you have paid so much money for. So that is where cost efficiency comes in on a decision level. Then to achieve the greater output, so where does that greater output lies for you as an institution? Of course, stakeholder satisfaction. I think by now you should know after 4 webinars that I'm big on stakeholder satisfaction, because that is the one thing that you cannot necessarily prove on paper in tick boxes, but that makes such a big difference to the usage of the system and the acceptance of a system, of a SIS system into institution. The operational ease of use, how easy is it for your staff to use the system? Because not all of them are focused on administration systems, especially your academic staff like your lecturers. They definitely did not want to go through a lengthy admin process to use the system. Ease of reporting, management and middle top management, operational managers, they need to report, and it doesn't matter if you have all this massive data into the system, and there is no easy way to report that back. Academic excellence, that is your output that you want to achieve with your SIS. On internal stakeholders, but also for external stakeholders, you want to achieve academic excellence. And therefore, a SIS may be cost effective, but that does not mean that it's necessarily cost efficient. You, as an institution representative, looking at why do you choose a specific SIS, the responsibility lies with you to make sure that you choose a system that is cost effective and not only cost efficient and not only cost effective to the institution. And that is the part that I want to focus on today. Not only what can we do with and how much will it cost us, but what can we do better with less resources and who will gain from that in the best possible way. So let's look at academia. What do we want to achieve when we look at cost efficiency? Mostly in the management process is where the challenges lies from a SIS. So it's inefficient and time-consuming processes that flows down from the management level to the operational users, but it usually starts off with management that experience the usage of your SIS as a time-consuming process. Lack of data and visibility. You would think in this day and age where technology makes everything possible, that should not be a factor, but it is still a factor where it's difficult for management to reach data and to see data that's in the system. Poor stakeholder management, that is definitely a challenge in your management process. Complex management activities on the system. Again, that is not their core business, so they want to do it as easy and as quick as possible. High communication cost. How easy is it for you to communicate and what will the cost of that be? Unstructured reporting, that actually falls within your reporting or your lack of data, but if there's no structures behind your reporting, and that can only be determined by the reporting tool that is used within your SIS. Look at what reporting tool is not only supported, but embedded in your SIS. So where does this leave us with the most important question in my mind? Higher time, effort, and monetary investment. How do you achieve that while you get lower productivity? And that is your challenge in your management process, to make sure that higher time, effort, and monetary investment can be reached while achieving lower productivity. And that again is the difference between cost efficiency and cost effectiveness. Now, to assist in these management challenges, you need a system that facilitates the flow of information to assist these processes. So the system look for routing and built-in process flow in your system. To provide a business platform by which your institution manages and integrates important processes. Evaluate how your SIS makes provision for the integration of these processes in your management cycle. Collects and builds data from various levels of the institution's academic processes. Look at integration, because your SIS is one component of your student lifecycle management. There are many components. We've spoken about your LMS, your plagiarism detection software, your access control. So there are many more components to this. See how you can build and collect all this data from the various levels of your institution's academic process via the integration that your SIS makes available. Automate your department versus the processes and the functions. You, of course, need a system that assists in that. Easy access to data and information. The important part to listen to this is the system device independent? One of the examples is your mobile application. Does it have a mobile application embedded, or do you need to go and pay extra for the development of a mobile application? Is the system device independent, or do you need to develop further if you want your lecturers to use a smartphone to mark attendance within the class? So those are the components that makes a difference to the access to data and information. And then lastly, to make the student management process leaner and meaner, because this just becomes more difficult as technology grows and as more options becomes available for the institution to offer to the student. You do not want your administration process to be the main focus of how can you assist your students. So this process must be continuously made leaner and meaner via the SIS that you use. Okay, so this is what you're looking for in a system. How will that assist you? Where will that lead you as an institution? Of course, improve data management, improve institutional operations, making sure that your operations are seamless and easy to manage. The reporting will be improved, very important on a management level. Improve stakeholder management and communication. Now, that communication is to all stakeholders, not only on management level, but improving the communication to each and every end user, where the information that is in the system must reach a target grouping without becoming a headache. Empower and drive your academic staff. Your SIS is a marketing tool to your students, but it is a working tool to your academic staff, and it must empower them and it must excite them to do what they want to do without a lot of trouble and headaches in the SIS that they use. Increase return on investment. How do you see that? more student applications. Now in South Africa, that is sometimes not something that you want to achieve with all the over applications that you already get, but you obviously want to make sure that you attract the correct students with your student applications. And there your SIS plays a big role, because at the end of the day, the portal part of a SIS is also a marketing tool to the institution. Lecture retention, if they have a nice tool to work on, it's easier to be satisfied and stay where you are. Stakeholder satisfaction, you don't want the stakeholders on management level to be frustrated with the lack of information that they can get. And I think lastly, to look at the system that will lead to recurring cost saving, because the implementation project is one of the components, and that's sometimes a very painful process, a very painful component for 2 years. But after that, you as the institution need to be able to maintain the system and afford the system ongoing for how many years. And that is where recurring costs plays a big role. Now, we have looked at the cost factor last week and say, what are the things that plays a factor in the cost savings, in your maintenance, in your customization, in the development of the system, in the releases, agile versus waterfall releases of the system. Those are all the things that can aid and assist you in the cost saving part. Okay, so where can academia save costs for you as an institution? I think we're going to start, or we're quickly going to touch on the technology, then customization, license, maintenance and support, implementation, and upgrades. So let's start off with technology. Academia uses open source technology like MySQL and Java. First flag that goes up, cost saving to you as the institution. Not a very expensive platform or development tool to buy to develop your system on. Now, those of you that has got knowledge on development tools knows that this can be a very, very expensive exercise for some of the tools that you work on. So open source technologies, just take that upfront cost away. No additional hardware, and the operating system cost is embedded in the hosting environment. We as Academia, we host in Microsoft Azure. In South Africa, you are hosted in South Africa. For the African clients, you are hosted where it is most efficient for you to be hosted in Microsoft Azure. But that gives you assurance of things like automated backups, disaster recovery, and that list is ongoing, with no additional cost from the Academia side. The system is device independent, so that saves costs to the institution and also saves costs to the end user. You can use any device to reach the system from. You can use any of the functionality in the system via any device to achieve what you want to achieve without doing additional development. Yes, most of the systems can do that, but many times after the implementation project, you have to go back and now start to develop applications, for example, that is specific to the specific devices. Academia comes embedded with a student application, a student app that allows students to query their often used information and the things that you want to send to the students via push delivery so that they have that available and handy to reach that type of information. But also it allows all the other stakeholders to use the system from anywhere where they are with the device that is available. Another example of that is the chatbot. So there's a chatbot that you set up. You as the institution set up the questions, the answers. You have full control over what you set up in those questions and answers. And that aids you to do this first line of inquiries via a tool that students know. They all know chatbots. They love to use them. They still do not realize it's much easier to pick up a phone sometimes, but they love that technology. And the Academia system makes that technology available to use as part of the system that is rolled out. Okay, so open source technologies, the hosting, the support, that makes it easy to save money in a project. License and maintenance. What influences your license and maintenance and support costs? Of course, the database that you use and the hosting platform, we said that we are using open source technologies. We are hosted in Microsoft Azure. That in itself is a huge cost saving. Especially for ongoing costs. Again, the challenge is not always to get to a point where you can implement the system, but to keep on affording that system on maintenance levels, not only for the software, but also for the database, also for the platform that you use. The technology that you use for development, how expensive is that technology? Again, I refer back to our open source technologies that we use. How easy is it to learn and to use the system? That is important because that has to do with the size of the implementation project. The easier it is to use and learn how to use the system, usually the smaller the implementation project can be, but also with the ongoing enablement of personnel. So if a new personnel member joins, how easy is it for them to learn the system and to get to start to work on the system? And how easy is it to change the system? Now, we've looked at that in detail 2 webinars back on how easy is it to configure or to customize the system, because that will definitely be a cost factor. And we will touch again on this just a bit later. How easy is it to add functionality in the system? And then, of course, your upgrade methodology. If you upgrade, what type of methodology do you use to upgrade? We've looked at this last time. I said we follow agile methodology, not a waterfall methodology. And that just makes it a lot more cost effective in planning, not only on resource time, but especially on cost time for the upgrading of the system. That just makes it so much easier to stay in touch with all the new technology and to make sure that the end users get the value of that technology. Just one example of the technology that is made available, so in choosing the right technology, is of course an example of the analytics for management. The technology that you use, how easy does that make it for you as an institution to give customized analytics for management based on the things that they want to see, that they usually ask for, that they once in a blue moon ask for, now suddenly they need it very urgent? Do you have in your system, like in the academia system, the ability to supply that to management with configuration options for you as an individual institution? Okay, let's look at implementation. So we've looked at technology and how does that assist you in the costing of your project and your SIS, licensing and maintenance and support. And that will always consist of 2 components, the implementation component and then of course the ongoing component. So let's look at implementation. Why is implementation important in cost saving? That's actually, I think, a question that you all can answer very easily, because time is money. Money directly relates to on-site costs, and that also relates to institutional resources. So any component in that sentence, if one of them is very long or costly, it influences the rest. And it usually starts off with the time that you spend in a project, because all time or implementation time that you spend directly correlates to on-site support, to the travel and accommodation for that, continuing into the institution resources where they have to put time aside and not do their normal day-to-day work. So that is usually where this path starts off with. The implementation model that academia follows is a modular approach, and we also follow an iterative implementation model, which makes it easy to in pieces or in modules, release the functionality to the end users and not have this very big, again, waterfall approach where all structures are set up, then all data is converted from the old systems, then all training is done, and now you start off with going live. We do it in an iterative way, so we take bits and pieces based on the cycle in the institution and based on the logic sequence of how things work in your institution. And we implement and release them in the implementation project as we as those parts go live. And that just makes it a lot easier to maintain the project in the sense of who's involved in which of these, and then resources can be released and new resources can be used. It also makes it easier for the end user to follow because it is a process that is very specific to a specific group of end users. So we found that this implementation model works a lot better and it makes it a lot easier to implement the system at the institutions. We also use in the implementation process data sheets for the creation of your take-home structures and your data. And I think what's different in the academia system is that these sheets that you use is not a once-off individual development for each project, which then, of course, results in a cost to that institution to import the data, let's say your student historical data, that into your SIS. We have existing data sheet functionality that makes it available for the end user even to download the sheet, populate the data into that sheet, and upload that into the system. It also gives you the functionality to, on an ongoing basis, upload big chunks of data into the system. So if you have a total new structure or new grouping of students or a new academic part that you want to add, the system aids you with these data structures that you can download the sheet, fill it in or populate that into the sheet and upload the sheet again. A very friendly tool to use, even post-implementation. An interface that is user-friendly, very easy to understand interface, known look and feel. The operational users have an ease when they look at the system on how to use the system. The process is also guided by the menu structures to make it easy, structures or menu structures that can be customized and that can aid you in grouping of these functionalities into specific menus with guidelines on what happens in the cycle. So if you look at this example, admissions, there's a part that says only admission settings, then your application forms, your fees, your selection process, and then the reporting comes. So that aids the end user in where do I go and search for what I want to do if I've not used it often enough, and how does that logically fall within the process of what I do with the data. One of the rules here is to keep it simple, to make sure that you do not flood your institution with data, that you do not flood the institution with unnecessary data and screens, that you customize and keep it very specific to an institution, and that you keep the data specific to a project, because you do want to simplify this process and not add to the chaos. So any solution you bring to the table should help you to simplify the company's processes and data and not add to the chaos. Because yes, you can always buy a Porsche, funding provided, you can always buy a Porsche, but sometimes you do not need that Porsche with all the trimmings, and that only adds to the chaos in this project, and it does not aid in where do you want to end up in the project. And that is important to keep in mind. Let's look at customization then. Where does customization play a cost or a factor in the cost of the system? We spoke about configuration versus customization in one of the webinars, and that is a very important part to remember if you look at the cost factor. What percentage of this refers to configuration and what percentage refers to customization? We also said that there will always be customization because the nature of an education institution is just of such that there are things that will be different to this institution, and that may be a different department, it may be a different business rule that they follow, it may be a total new venture that they want to implement to generate funds. So there will be bigger parts that will always be customization. But the focus of if you want to change things in the system should be on how much can be configured. That is what we spent some time on last time. So let me just quickly and briefly refer back to that with relation to where does this reflect on the cost in the SIS project. To customize within a process, now we previously said that the academia system allows you to customize in a process For example, this is the application form, a very, very easy, simple example of one. But each and every step in your application process, we design as a customized form as part of the implementation process. So you do not have to take a pre-designed implementation application form and continue with that. And then if you want to change, you as an institution has to spec it and pay for that. When we implement the academia system, the application or the admission part of this is from the start customized, and you decide on the look and feel that you want to follow in this process. Then the configuring of the information to end users. How easy is it for end users, and that may be either on institution level or on individual level, to change the system for that small thing that bothers you because you do not actually work in that way in your institution, or you as a user have a specific preference. I don't like my screens to clutter. I don't like to not see everything on one screen. That's just the same example for two different people. How easy does the system make it for you to be able to have a say in this as an individual user? So we also spoke about that. With implementation, the naming conventions of the fields is decided upon by the institution and implemented specific to your institution. So if you use subject and not module, if you use qualification, instead of, sometimes that is used for module. So depending on what naming convention you use, that is implemented in the system and the way in which you want your naming conventions to be. If you use rank instead of title, the system will be implemented with rank. This not only makes it for the end user easier to understand the system that they use, but it also helps them in the reporting side, because when you now print the report, the institution-specific wording will be used on the reports. And that can, as I said, sometimes be a very small thing, but as a big irritation factor within the institution on end-user level if you start to use a new SIS. Okay, another way is the configuring of the input and display screens, where you can simply, by you as an individual end user, by dragging fields across, you can change the layout of your screen. You can hide free fields, you can add fields. For example, now I don't want to see all the columns that is available on this, that is already displayed. You, the individual user, can take these columns away, and the person sitting next to you decide, I want to see most of these columns because I like a big overview of the data that I see. And the system is very easy in aiding you to change that look and feel for you as an individual user. This is applicable to your dashboards as well as the administration system, where you can decide, I want to see differently, I want to see my look and feel in a different way, I want to change my dashboards and move the dashlets, these bits of information in my dashboard. I want to change that around and only see the things that are important to me, or first see the things that's important to me. And this is where the system allows you to change the input and the display screens on individual level. So although the naming conventions, that will be on a global level for your institution itself, because you just have to have the control over that, but the input screens and the display screens, you as the individual user have the ability to change that based on your personal preference. The configuring of reports. If I have chosen some data for a report, again, I see all these fields that is available, but I want to only use 4 fields for the report that I want to generate now, because those were the fields that a specific query was on, or the people that want to view this report only have a need to see those specific fields. You can simply change the layout of that report by selecting or deselecting these fields and then export the report. That export can be done in a predefined format already, or it can be done just simply to Word or Excel, and you have the information available. Next time that I want to generate the same report, I only want to see 4 of these fields. And with that same tool, the same process, I can deselect all the other fields from E onwards that I see and only display the fields that I want to see for this specific purpose. That easy it is to configure your reports. Why is this important? Because it saves you money. You don't have to, for every time that you want to change on the extraction of data, whether that is for your own use or for reporting to a stakeholder body, you don't have to go through a customization process. You configure the system for yourself individually to assist in that process. Okay, so that was on technology, on customization, the licensing, maintenance and support, and the implementation process. Then lastly, I want us to look at the upgrades, because upgrades is one of those things that never spoken of, but somewhere in the process, after 2 years or 3 years, when you want to start to upgrade for the first time in a, let's say, a waterfall process, then the institution suddenly realized there's such a big cost, and not only on money that needs to be paid for the upgrade, but in downtime, in the retraining of resources, in technology that has changed so much in the past few years. So that upgrades can be after the fact, very, very big in the project. Okay, so there are usually two upgrade cycles or upgrade methodologies that is followed: waterfall or agile. So waterfall, that is where the software is released at the end of a development cycle, which is usually a 24 to a 36-month cycle. And then all stages in this is completed in a linear fashion. So that is a lengthy process. It is usually a big project with huge costs. If you go through a waterfall upgrade, the downtime of operations is long. There's training to all the end users. There's a break in your productivity. And then fantastic, they sit with a total new product that has been changed in the last 36 months. But that is a very chaotic process in the institution, because you have waited so long for these changes to come. And then when they are there, it has got such a big impact on your operations that it takes time to get to a stage of ease with the system again. And many of the traditional systems, I want to say 10 years back, all systems was done in a waterfall release fashion or methodology. The academia system has been designed from the start in an agile process. Now, that is one thing also to look at when you evaluate your systems. Many of the traditional systems now claim, okay, we're also agile, but they have not been developed on an agile release methodology or module from the start. So it's very easy to add on agile to the platform that you use if that platform is not supported of agile. Now, the academia system has been developed from the start in an agile way. So that is a faster development method that gives you more features to be released quicker. So short cycles, new technology, develop something new that's asked by the institutions and release that. So that gives you iterative approach with short cycles. Academia releases every 4 months, so 4 times a year. We release the enhancements that has come about in that 4 months. But for shorter, smaller changes, we sometimes also allow for a monthly upgrade of new technology and new functions that has been added. But even your 4-month release cycle, that is not a long downtime cycle. There is no big training needed. Documentation is supplied. Changes are made. If it's changes that is easy to understand by the users, they can read the manual and continue in the process. So there's different ways in which to handle this, but it's an easy way to make sure that end users, the new technology and new functionality that is available in the market and in the system reaches them timely, and not by the time that it reaches them, it is such old news that it's not that important for them to use it anymore. Here I can take the example of chatbots. Chatbots was very hype and the talk of the day, let's say 2 years back, and everybody wanted chatbots. If we waited with the release of that in a waterfall fashion and only released that 3 years afterwards, then it's old news. And that many times happens with technology if you have a very long development and then release cycle. So academia releases often and regularly the enhancement that has been made. Now, this results in less bugs because it's small components at a time, and higher quality software because it's easier to test these pieces than to try and reinvent the wheel in a very big process of testing everything that has changed in a long process. And of course, when bugs are found, they're much easier to fix because it is a capped part of the system that you need to look for. So that is the difference usually between Agile and Waterfall. Now, you all know by now that we follow a Waterfall approach, and that works very well for us as a company, but also for you as an end user, to ensure that you do not have to budget for a costly process when planning for the releases of your system. If you look at history, many times big projects has lapsed for 2-3 years to upgrade to a newer version, which by then it is after the fact already, just because of the cost and the effort to upgrade to a new release after a long period. So I think I then want to leave you with a comment on when you look at the cost factors in an SIS project. The question is not what will it cost you, but the question is what will it cost you not to have the academia system, not to have the right student information system, and to have a system that does not take these components like technology, customization, the implementation process, licensing and maintenance costs and support, and your upgrades into account when you take a decision around what is the cost factors of your SIS. And with that, I think I will stop and take a breath and see if there are any questions in our chat box. As always, I hope everybody's rather listening than asleep if they don't ask questions. Are there any questions with relation to the cost factors? And I think there with a focus on cost efficiency versus cost effectiveness in a SIS. Any questions? As always, the recording will be distributed by IFO Corp to everybody that has logged in and participated. And then my invitation is open to you. If your institution wants to see more detail on the system, wants to go through any of these webinars again, wants to have a view on what does the system look like if you go through the operational parts of the system, or just have a discussion on, so how fitting is this for our institution? We sit in a specific country, in a specific environment, and how fitting is the system as well as the support that we receive to our environment? Please reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to go into conversation, or we can schedule a call and we can discuss this further. If there are no questions, I want to thank everybody that has joined today. As always, it's a pleasure. This is now the last one in the 4th series, and then in a month's time, we will repeat the series again. So if you have more people from your institution that wants to have information on the Academia-SIS, please make sure that they dial in and join us in a month's time again. If there are no questions, then thank you, everybody.